3 years after a Manhattan real estate mogul claimed me as his own, I made a shocking discovery. My body had somehow fused with an ABO universe. I became the only man on Earth who could get pregnant. Looking at my slightly swollen belly, I faked my death and ran without a second thought. The next time we met, he had a gun pressed to my chin, his obsessive gaze fixed on my son. The fever hit at 2 a.m. I knew because I've been awake since midnight, listening to the rain hammer against the windows of our shitty one-bedroom apartment. The kind of rain that made New York feel like a drowned city, the kind that sent taxis scurrying for cover and left desperate people like me standing on curbs with dying children in their arms. Cody's skin was on fire. I've been checking him every hour, my palm pressed to his forehead like a prayer. At midnight, he was warm. At 1, he was hot. At 2, he was burning, the kind of heat that made my own blood run cold, that sent me stumbling out of bed in nothing but a t-shirt and jeans, shoving my feet into shoes I didn't bother to tie. "Baby, wake up." I shook him gently, then not so gently. "Cody, Cody." His eyes fluttered open, glassy and unfocused. Those eyes, my eyes fox-shaped and too knowing for a 3-year-old, looked up at me without really seeing. "Daddy." Shush, I've got you." I wrapped him the blanket from his bed, the one with the little stars that he refused to sleep without. He weighed nothing. He'd always weighed nothing. Premature, fragile, a baby I'd almost lost half a dozen times before he even took his first breath. A cold could knock him out for 2 weeks. A fever like this? I didn't let myself finish the thought. The hallway smelled like other people's dinners, curry from 3B, cigarette smoke from 4A, the stale marijuana that drifted up from the basement apartment where the landlord's nephew lived. I took the stairs 2 at a time, Cody's weight pressed against my chest, his breath coming in shallow little gasps that made my heart seize with every exhale. "Stay with me, baby. Daddy's got you. Daddy's got you." The rain hit me like a wall the second I burst through the front door. No taxis. Of course there were no taxis. This was Queens at 2 a.m. during a thunderstorm, and I was standing on the curb like an idiot, holding my son, watching the rain soak through his star blanket and into his hair. Come on, come on, come on. A car's headlights appeared at the end of the street. I didn't think. I just ran into the road, waving my arms like a madman, like the kind of person I used to see on the news and think, what an idiot. Doesn't he know that's how people get killed? The car screeched to a stop 6 inches from my niece. I didn't flinch. I couldn't afford to flinch anymore. Flinching was a luxury for people who hadn't spent 3 years learning that survival meant standing your ground even when everything in you wanted to run. Watch where you're going. I ran to the driver's side window, Cody still pressed against my chest. The rain was in my eyes, in my mouth, soaking through my t-shirt so I could feel every word I spoke in the chill against my skin. "Please, sir, my son has a fever. I can't get a cab. Please, just any hospital, I don't care which one, just please help us." The driver was a middle-aged man with a mustache, and the kind of face that said I've seen too many sob stories to believe any of them. He waved me off like I was a fly. "Get lost. We're in a hurry." I glanced through the window into the back seat. There was someone else there. A man. The kind of man who looked important even in the dark, even through rain-streaked glass, even though all I could see was the shape of him and the glint of something expensive on his wrist. I didn't recognize him. Not then. The rain was too heavy, my panic too loud, Cody's heat too terrifying against my chest. I ran to the back window and knocked. "Please. I'm begging you. I'll pay 3 times the fare, 5 times, whatever you want. Just please, my son is burning up." A long pause. Then the back door opened. "Get in." The voice was low. Familiar in a way that didn't register, that couldn't register, because my brain was too full of Cody's fever and Cody's breathing, and all the ways a child could die if you didn't get them help fast enough. I climbed in, pulling Cody tight against me, already reaching for his forehead again. Still burning. Still too hot. "Thank you," I said, not looking up. "Thank you, I'm sorry, I know this is... I'll pay you back, I promise, just... look at me." The words hit my spine like ice water. I knew that voice. I had spent 3 years listening to that voice in the dark, in the light, in my ear, and against my throat and wrapped around every single one of my worst and best memories. 3 years of that voice telling me what to do, how to be, when to kneel and when to fight and when to give up. I couldn't move. Look at me. Slowly, like a man walking to his own execution, I raised my head. The interior light of the car flickered on, probably the driver's doing, probably some automatic thing, and I saw him. James, heir to a New York political dynasty. Real estate mogul by 30. The man who had claimed me at 22, kept me for 3 years, and received an urn of ashes when I'd faked my death to escape. His jaw was sharper than I remembered. His eyes were darker. The scent of him hit me a second later, cedar and smoke and something underneath that was pure alpha, the kind of pheromone that made my omega hindbrain sit up and pay attention even when the rest of me wanted to run screaming. I'd forgotten how powerful his scent was. Or maybe I'd just spent 3 years telling myself I'd forgotten. James tilted his head, and his eyes, those gray eyes that had haunted every single one of my dreams for 3 years, moved from my face to the child in my arms. Weren't you dead? I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Faked it, huh? His voice was soft. That was the worst part. When James went soft, when his voice dropped to that almost gentle register, that's when he was most dangerous. Going behind my back and having a kid. You've got some nerve. Cody stirred in my arms, his little face scrunching up. Daddy. I lowered my head, pressing my forehead to Cody's. Still too hot. Still terrifying. James. His name tasted like ash in my mouth. Like 3 years I'd tried to forget. I'll explain later. Just please, take us to a hospital first. Cody's fever is too high, he can't. Then let him die. The words were flat, empty, like he was talking about the weather, like he was discussing what to order for dinner. He can go with you. James's mouth curved into something that wasn't a smile. Or did you think I'd let him live even if he recovers? I knew that look. I knew that tone. James wasn't joking. James had never joked about things like this, about possession, about revenge, about the people he considered his. Please. I grabbed his hand without thinking. His skin was warm, dry, so different from Cody's burning little fingers. James, this isn't what you think. Just help me first. I'll explain everything. I promise. He looked down at my hand on his, then back up at my face. For a long moment, no one spoke. The rain hammered against the roof of the car. Cody whimpered in his sleep. Drive, James said to the driver. Presbyterian. The car lurched forward. If you try to get out of this car, James said, not looking at me, I promise he won't see tomorrow's sunrise. The hospital was a blur of fluorescent lights and antiseptic smell, and a kind of mechanical efficiency that I'd learned to be grateful for over the past 3 years. Nurses took Cody from my arms. I almost didn't let go, almost fought them, almost made a scene that would have gotten me sedated, and James handled the paperwork. Of course, James handled the paperwork. James handled everything. I stood in the corner of the waiting room, arms wrapped around myself, watching him at the front desk. He'd changed in 3 years, or maybe I'd changed, or maybe we both had. His shoulders seemed broader under that expensive coat. His hair was shorter. But the way he moved, that predatory grace that made other alphas step aside without knowing why, that was exactly the same. And his scent. God, his scent. I'd spent 3 years telling myself I didn't miss it. That cedar smoke alpha smell that used to wrap around me in his penthouse, that used to seep into my clothes and my skin and my very bones until I couldn't tell where I ended and he began. 3 years of pretending that the first time I'd gone through a heat alone, a real heat, not the suppressed ones I'd managed with pills and sheer force of will. I hadn't cried myself hoarse wishing for him. But I had. Of course I had. James finished at the desk and walked toward me, and every alpha in the waiting room tensed. I saw it happen. The way they straightened, the way their eyes tracked him, the way some instinct deeper than thought recognized a predator in their midst. You're shaking. I hadn't noticed. I looked down at my hands, at the fine tremor running through them, and curled my fingers into fists. Cody is being treated. He'll be fine. James stopped a foot away from me, close enough that his scent wrapped around me like a physical thing, close enough that I could feel the heat of him. Sit down before you fall down. I don't want to sit. Sit. That voice. That tone. The one that used to make my knees buckle 3 years ago. That used to send heat pooling in my belly even when I hated him for it. I sat. James sat next to me. Not touching. Close enough that our shoulders almost brushed. So he said, looking straight ahead at the wall, "Explain." I opened my mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. I can't. Can't or won't. Can't. I pressed the heels of my hands against my eyes. I don't know how to explain something I don't understand myself. Start at the beginning. The beginning? A laugh bubbled up out of me, hysterical and sharp. You want the beginning? The beginning was you buy me at Elysium like I was a piece of meat. The beginning was 3 years of, that's not what I meant and you know it. I lowered my hands and looked at him. His jaw was tight. His hands, those hands that had done unspeakable things to me, that also held me through nightmares and fed me soup when I was sick and once, memorably, punched a man for looking at me wrong, or clenched on his thighs. The kid, he said. How old is he? 3. 3 years since you died. I know. So you got pregnant right before you left. I didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Who's the father? The question hit me like a physical blow. I turned to look at him, really look at him, and saw the thing he was trying so hard to hide underneath all that ice and anger. Jealousy. James Astor, heir to a political dynasty, the most powerful alpha in New York City, was jealous. I told you, I said quietly. I'll explain, but not here. Not now. Just let me make sure Cody's okay first. Please. Something flickered across his face. Something that might have been pain, or might have been understanding, or might have been nothing at all. Fine. We sat in silence while the rain hammered against the hospital windows, and the fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and somewhere down the hall, my son was fighting for his life without me. They let me see Cody an hour later. He was asleep in a small bed, and 4 in his arm, monitors beeping softly around him. His color was better, still pale, but not that awful gray-white he'd been in the car. The fever was coming down. I pulled a chair to his bedside and sat down, reaching through the railing to hold his hand. Daddy, I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Was scared. I know. I kissed his fingers. I'm sorry. Daddy's sorry. Cody, sleep now? Yeah, baby. Go to sleep. His eyes drifted closed, and I sat there holding his hand, watching the monitors, trying not to think about the alpha in the waiting room who was probably planning my murder. The door opened 20 minutes later. I didn't turn around. I knew the footsteps. They said he's stable, James said. His voice was quieter now, stripped of some of that razor edge. They want to keep him overnight for observation. I know. Mark. I closed my eyes. He hadn't said my name in 3 years. I'd forgotten how it sounded in his voice, like something precious, something worth keeping. Look at me. I turned. James was standing in the doorway, rain still clinging to his hair, his coat discarded somewhere. In the soft light of the hospital room, he looked almost human, almost vulnerable, almost like the man I'd almost let myself love. Tell me the truth, he said. Not the whole truth. I know you won't give me that. But one thing. One true thing. I thought about lying. I'd gotten good at lying over the past 3 years. Lying to doctors, to neighbors, to Cody himself when he asked where his other parent was. But I was so tired. Cody is mine, I said. Not Chloe's. Not some woman's. Mine. James's brow furrowed. What does that mean? It means I gave birth to him. The words came out flat, empty, like I was reading a grocery list. I carried him for 8 months. I almost died having him. He is mine. Silence. The monitors beeped. The rain fell. James stared at me like I'd started speaking a language he didn't understand. That's not possible. I know. You're a man. I know. Then how? I don't know. The words came out sharper than I intended, and Cody stirred in his sleep. I lowered my voice. I don't know how. I don't know why. All I know is that 3 years ago, right before I left, something changed. My body changed. I started having heats, real heats, not whatever you thought was happening before. And then I got pregnant. James took a step toward me. Then another. His scent intensified, cedar and smoke and something else, something almost like grief. You're telling me that kid is mine. I'm telling you that kid is mine. I met his eyes. He doesn't have a father. He has me. That's all he's ever had. Mine. James said it like a revelation, like a curse, like a prayer. He moved closer, close enough that I could feel the heat of him through my t-shirt, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his gray eyes. He smells like me. What? Cody. He smells like... James's voice cracked. I never heard James's voice crack before. He smells like Pack. Like mine. That's not... You're imagining things. I'm not. He reached out and I flinched, old instinct, old fear, but he only touched Cody's hair. Just the lightest brush of his fingers against those dark strands. Look at him, Mark. Really look at him. I looked. Cody had my eyes, those fox-shaped eyes that had got me called every name in the book from the time I was old enough to notice. But his jaw, his cheekbones, the way his upper lip curved. James. I told myself I was imagining it. Told myself that all babies looked like that I was seeing things because I was tired and scared and alone. But standing here, with James's hand on my son's hair and James's scent filling the room. He's yours, I whispered. Yours and mine. I don't know how. I don't know why. But he's ours. James was quiet for a long time. Then he pulled his phone out of his pocket and made a call. Get the car ready. We're leaving in 10 minutes. James. He looked at me, and there was something in his eyes that I'd never seen before. Something almost like wonder. Almost like terror. You're coming home with me, he said. Both of you. That's not, I can't just. You can and you will. He stepped closer, close enough that his chest almost touched mine. His scent was overwhelming now. Wrapping around me like chains, like a promise, like a warning. You faked your death. You ran. You kept my son from me for 3 years. And now I've found you again. James, I'm not letting you go. His hand came up, cupping my jaw, his thumb brushing over my lower lip. Not ever again. I should have fought. I should have run. I should have done a lot of things. Instead, I closed my eyes and let myself breathe him in. The penthouse hadn't changed. That was the first thought that hit me when James's driver pulled up to the familiar building, when the private elevator whisked us up to the top floor, when the doors opened onto the apartment where I'd spent 3 years of my life. The same floors. The same walls of windows overlooking the city. The same furniture, the same art, the same everything. It was like stepping back in time. Cody was still at the hospital. James had arranged for a private room, private nurses, everything he could possibly need. I'd fought it at first, fought leaving him, but James had been immovable. He's safe. He's being cared for. And you and I need to talk. So here I was, back in the lion's den. James walked past me into the living room, loosening his tie. He'd changed somewhere along the way, or maybe he'd just taken off his coat, rolled up his sleeves, become something more human and more dangerous all at once. Sit. I didn't sit. James turned, one eyebrow raised. That look used to make me obey, back in the day. Back when I was 22 and terrified and so full of Omega instincts, I didn't understand that I couldn't tell the difference between fear and desire. I was 25 now. I'd given birth. I'd raised a child. I'd survived. Sit, he said again, or I'll make you. What, you're going to punish me? The words came out before I could stop them. Ground me? Take away my phone privileges. James's eyes darkened. That mouth of yours, he said softly, taking a step toward me. 3 years and you still don't know when to keep it shut. 3 years and you still think you can tell me what to do. He moved fast, faster than I remembered, or maybe I'd just forgotten how fast he could move when he wanted to. 1 second he was 10 feet away, and the next his hand was on my throat, not squeezing, just holding. Just reminding me who was in charge. I've dreamed about this, he said, his voice low. Every night for 3 years. I'd wake up thinking I heard your voice, smelled your scent, and then I'd remember that you were dead. His grip tightened slightly. That you'd rather die than stay with me. That's not. I went to the morgue. His other hand came up, fingers tracing my jaw. They wouldn't let me see the body. Just gave me an urn and told me to go home. Do you know what that feels like, Mark? Holding an urn full of ashes that might be the only thing left of someone you. He stopped. Someone you what? I whispered. James's jaw worked. His scent flared, anger and grief and something else, something raw and desperate that I'd never smelled on him before. Someone I wasn't finished with. The lie hung in the air between us. I didn't call him on it. Maybe because I was a coward. Maybe because I was tired. Maybe because if I admitted what I'd seen in his eyes, what I'd seen in the hospital, what I'd seen in the car, then I'd have to admit the things I'd felt too. The things I'd run from. Why did you really leave? James asked, and his voice was different now. Quieter. Almost gentle. Not the bullshit about being a monster. The real reason. I told you. I was pregnant, and you thought I'd what? Lock you in a basement? Sell you to a lab? I thought you'd be disgusted. The words came out before I could stop them. I thought you'd look at me and see something broken. Something wrong. Something that wasn't even human anymore. James's hand moved from my throat to my cheek. His thumb brushed under my eye, catching a tear I hadn't realized I'd shed. You're an idiot, he said. What? A complete and utter idiot. He leaned closer, his forehead almost touching mine. Do you have any idea how many heats I spent dreaming about a pup with your eyes? How many times I wished? He stopped again. Wished what? James pulled back. His eyes were bright, too bright, and his scent was doing something strange, going soft around the edges, losing that sharp alpha edge. Wished you'd let me give you a litter, he said roughly. Wished you'd stay. Wished you want to stay. James. But you ran. His hand dropped. You faked your death. You took my pup and you ran, and you let me think you were dead for 3 years. I was scared. So was I. He turned away from me, walking to the window, staring out at the city. Every day. Every single day. Wondering if you'd suffered. Wondering if you'd thought of me at the end. Wondering if you'd... His voice broke. I'd never heard James Astor's voice break. Not once in 3 years. Not when his grandfather disowned him for keeping a man. Not when his business partners threatened to pull out. Not when the press called him every name in the book. But standing there, looking out at the New York skyline, he sounded like a man who'd lost everything. I'm sorry, I said. James laughed. It was an ugly sound, sharp and broken. Sorry. That's what you have to say. 3 years and all you can manage is sorry. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me the truth. He turned back to face me. All of it. No more lies. No more running. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw how much he'd changed. The lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. The gray at his temples. The way he held himself, like he was bracing for a blow. The truth, I said slowly, is that I don't know what I am anymore. I don't know if I'm even human. I carry a child for 8 months and give birth like it's the most natural thing in the world. And then I go into heat like an animal, and I can't think about anything except... Except what? Except you. The word came out strangled. Every heat. Every single one. I'd lie in bed and I'd smell your scent on clothes I'd stolen before I left, and stolen. I took a shirt. Before the accident. One of yours. My face was burning. I told myself it was for Cody, so he'd have something that smelled like family. But really You just what? I missed you. The tears were falling now, hot and embarrassing. I hated you for what you did to me, for the way you kept me, for the way you made me feel like I was nothing but a body you'd bought. But I missed you. James crossed the room in 3 strides. His hands were in my hair, on my face, pulling me against him. His scent was everywhere, cedar and smoke and that deep alpha musk that made my knees weak and my hindbrain sing. Say it again. I missed you. Again. I missed you, James. Every day. Every heat. Every time Cody did something that reminded me of you. He kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't tender. It was 3 years of grief and anger and wanting, all pressed into one desperate moment. His teeth scraped my lower lip. His hands fisted in my hair. His scent wrapped around me like a cage, like a home, like the only place I'd ever belonged. I kissed him back. I couldn't help it. 3 years of suppressing every omega instinct I had. 3 years of telling myself I didn't need him. 3 years of lying. It all fell apart the second his mouth touched mine. Mine. James growled against my throat. You're still mine. James. I can smell it. His nose pressed against my scent gland, right where my neck met my shoulder. You're not bonded. 3 years, and you never let anyone else. There was no one else. I gasped as his teeth scraped over the gland. There's never been anyone else. Just you. Good. He pulled back, just enough to look at me. His eyes were dark, pupils blown wide, and there was something feral in his expression. That's good. Because if there had been, you would have what? Killed them. Yes. He said it so simply, so matter-of-factly, like murder was just another item on his to-do list. James, I'm not joking. He cupped my face in his hands, tilting my head up. I spent 3 years imagining all the ways I'd make you pay if I ever found you again. All the things I'd do to the people who helped you hide. But you didn't. No. His thumb traced my cheekbone. I didn't. Because the second I saw you standing in the rain with our pup in your arms, I forgot every single one of those plans. James, I just wanted you back. His voice cracked again. That's all I've wanted for 3 years. Just you. Back. I didn't know what to say to that, so I kissed him instead. The next few days were a blur. James kept Cody in the hospital longer than necessary. To be safe, he said, but I knew the truth. He was buying himself time. Time to adjust to the idea of having a son. Time to figure out what he wanted from me. Time to decide if he was going to let us stay. I slept in the penthouse, in the room I used to use before. Everything. James didn't push. Didn't try to share my bed. Just left me alone with my thoughts and his scent, which seemed to be everywhere no matter how many windows I opened. On the 3rd day, Cody came home. He was still weak, still pale, but the fever was gone and his eyes were bright and he looked around the penthouse with a kind of wonder that only a 3-year-old could manage. Daddy, this house is huge. It's not our house, baby. It's just. His name is Cody. I turned. James was standing in the doorway, holding a stuffed bear that probably cost more than my monthly rent used to. I brought this for him. The hospital said he liked the one in his room, so You bought him a bear. I bought him a bear. James's jaw tightened. Is that a problem? Cody looked between us, then at the bear, then back at James. His nose wrinkled in that way. It did when he was thinking hard. You smell like Daddy, he said. James froze. What? You smell like Daddy. Cody tilted his head. Fox eyes narrowed. Like when Daddy is sad and he smells my hair and says I smell like home. I felt my face go red. James looked at me. One eyebrow raised. I never said that. You said it when you thought I was sleeping. Cody said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. You say lots of things when you think I'm sleeping. Like what? Like you miss the man with the sad eyes. Like you wish he could see me. Like, okay. I scooped Cody up, pressing his face against my shoulder. That's enough stories for today, baby. Why don't you say thank you for the bear? Thank you for the bear, mister. You can call me James. He stepped closer, and I watched him take a deep breath, scenting the air, scenting us. Or whatever you're comfortable with. Cody wiggled in my arms, reaching for the bear. Can I call you Big Daddy? Cody. I like it, James said. His voice was strange. Thick. Big Daddy. That's fine. I stared at him. He stared back. And somewhere in his eyes, I saw something I'd never seen before. Hope. That night, after Cody was asleep in the guest room that James had somehow transformed into a child's bedroom in less than a day, I found James in his study. He was sitting at his desk, not working, just staring at the wall. A glass of whiskey sat untouched beside him. You should drink that before it gets warm. James looked up. I don't want it. Then why pour it? Because I needed something to do with my hands. I walked into the room, stopping a few feet from his desk. The same distance I'd kept since the night in the car. Close enough to talk. Far enough to run. He likes you, I said. Cody, don't sound so surprised. He's a good judge of character. And what about you? James leaned back in his chair, watching me. Are you a good judge of character? I used to think so. I moved closer, one step, then another. Then I spent 3 years with a man who bought me like a possession, and I couldn't decide if I hated him or loved him, so I ran. Which one did you decide on? I'm still deciding. James stood. I stopped moving. Come here, he said. Why? Because I'm asking nicely. He held out his hand. Because I don't want to give you orders anymore. Because he stopped. Swallowed. Because I missed you, Mark. Every day. Every night. And I just want to hold you. Just for a minute. I looked at his hand. At his face. At the way his scent had gone soft again, losing that sharp alpha edge. Then I took a step forward. Then another. Then I was in his arms, and he was holding me like I might disappear, and his face was pressed into my hair, and his scent was everywhere, and I was crying again. Shoo, James murmured. Shoo, I've got you. I've got you. Why do you want me? The words came out muffled against his chest. I'm broken. I'm wrong. I'm not even. You're mine. He pulled back, just enough to look at me. You've always been mine. From the first moment I saw you at Elysium, standing in the corner like you wanted to disappear. You were so scared, Mark. So young. And you bought me. I know. You kept me locked up. I know. You made me feel like. I know. His forehead pressed against mine. I know what I did. I know what I was. And I know I don't deserve a second chance. But what? But I'm asking for one anyway. His hands were shaking. James Astor's hands were shaking. Not because I think I've earned it. Not because I think you should forgive me. But because I don't know how to live without you anymore. I closed my eyes. James, just think about it. He kissed my forehead. That's all I'm asking. Just think about it. I thought about it. I thought about it while Cody recovered, while James tiptoed around a penthouse like a man afraid of breaking something precious. I thought about it while he learned how to make Cody's favorite foods, while he read bedtime stories in that low voice that used to make me shiver, while he watched us with an expression I couldn't quite name. I thought about it the night my heat hit. It came on fast, faster than any heat I'd had since leaving James. 1 minute I was fine, tucking Cody into bed, and the next I was burning up from the inside out, my skin too tight, my clothes unbearable, my whole body crying out for something I'd spent 3 years trying to forget. Alpha. Home. I made it to my room before I collapsed. Locked the door. Pressed my forehead against the cool wood and tried to breathe through the wave of want that crashed over me. It didn't help. Nothing helped. I could smell James through the door. His scent was stronger than it had any right to be. Cedar and smoke and that deep alpha musk that made my omega hindbrain whine with need. He must have been close. Must have been in the hallway. Or maybe. Mark. His voice. Right outside the door. Go away. Your sin. I said go away. Silence. Then softly, I can't help. I don't want your help. Mark. I don't want to need you. The words came out broken, desperate. I don't want to be this thing that falls apart without an alpha. I don't want. The door opened. I stared at it, then at James, then at the key in his hand. You picked the lock. I own a building. I have keys to every door. That's not the same thing. No. He stepped into the room, and his scent hit me like a wave, and my knees buckled. He caught me before I hit the floor. It's not. James, let me help you. His voice was low, rough, barely controlled. I won't do anything you don't want. But you're in pain, and I know what you can do. I was shaking now, my hands fisted in his shirt, my face pressed against his chest. I know what alphas do during heats. I know what you want to do. I want what you want. Liar. Fine. His hand came up, cupping the back of my neck. I want to mark you. I want to bond you. I want to spend the next 3 days wanting you until you can't remember your own name, let alone why you left. I want. Then do it. James went still. What? I said do it. I looked up at him, and I knew my eyes were blown wide, knew my scent was flooding the room, knew I was begging without using words. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of pretending I don't need you. So just do it. James made a sound, something between a growl and a sob, and then his mouth was on mine, and his hands were in my hair, and his scent was everywhere, and I was home. The heat lasted 4 days. By the end of it, I couldn't walk straight, couldn't think straight, couldn't remember a single reason I'd ever wanted to leave. James had marked me, a claiming bite on my neck, right over my scent gland, deep enough to scar. I'd marked him too, though mine was smaller, less permanent. Omega teeth weren't as sharp as alpha teeth, but I tried. On the 5th day, when I could finally stand without wobbling, James brought me breakfast in bed. Eggs and toast and coffee, just the way I used to like it. Cody asked about you, he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. I told him you were sick. I was sick. You were in heat. Same thing. James smiled. It was a small smile, tentative, like he wasn't sure he was allowed. Thank you, he said. For what? For staying. For giving me a chance. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the exhaustion in his face, the worry in his eyes, the way his hands were still shaking slightly. You didn't sleep. Couldn't. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. Every time I closed my eyes, I was afraid you'd be gone when I opened them. James, I know it's not healthy. His jaw tightened. I know I'm too much, too intense, too everything. But I can. You can. I took his hand. You can let yourself believe this is real. Can I? Yes. I squeezed his fingers. Because I'm not going anywhere. Not this time. James stared at me for a long moment. Then he pulled me into his arms, held me tight, and buried his face in my hair. I love you, he said. The words were muffled, barely audible. But I heard them. 3 weeks later, I woke up with my face in the toilet. James found me there, kneeling on the bathroom floor, my forehead pressed against the cool porcelain. Mark, I'm fine. You're throwing up. I said I'm fine. He didn't argue. Just knelt beside me, pulled my hair back from my face, and rubbed slow circles on my back until the nausea passed. This is the 3rd time this week, he said quietly. You should see a doctor. It's nothing. Mark. James. He looked at me, and I looked at him, and I saw the moment he figured it out. No. Maybe. You can't. The timing. I know. I closed my eyes. I know. James sat back on his heels. His face was pale, his eyes wide, his scent doing something complicated that I couldn't quite read. Are you? I don't know. I pressed a hand to my stomach. But I was nauseous with Cody, too. The same kind. The kind that doesn't go away. Mark, don't. I held up a hand. Don't say anything. Not yet. I need to be sure. James nodded slowly. Then he stood, helped me up, and guided me back to bed. Whatever happens, he said, pulling the covers over me, we'll figure it out. Together. Together, I repeated. It sounded like a promise. The pregnancy test was positive. Of course it was positive. My body had never been good at doing what I wanted it to do. I stared at the two little lines and tried to remember how to breathe. Pregnant. Again. It didn't make sense. I'd been careful as anyone could be during a heat, anyway. But James was an alpha, and I was an omega, and apparently the universe had decided that my body's only purpose was to prove that biology didn't care about logic. Mark. I shoved the test under the sink just as James walked into the bathroom. Just brushing my teeth. I picked up my toothbrush, squeezed toothpaste onto it, tried to look normal. James's eyes narrowed. You're lying. I'm not. Your scent changed. He stepped closer, and I watched him take a deep breath, his pupils dilating as he processed whatever his alpha senses were telling him. You're pregnant. It could be. You're pregnant. His voice cracked. We're having another baby. We don't know that for sure. James pulled me into his arms. He was shaking. James Astor, the most powerful alpha in New York City, was shaking. Another pup, he whispered into my hair. Ours. James. I'm sorry. He pulled back, just enough to look at me. I know you're scared. I know you didn't want this. But I can't pretend I'm not. Happy. Is that terrible? I looked at him, at the tears in his eyes, at the wonder on his face, at the way he was already pressing his hand against my stomach like he could feel something there. No, I said. It's not terrible. Then what is it? I took his hand, pressed it flat against my belly. It's everything. The months that followed were the strangest of my life. James was different now, softer, more careful, like he was afraid of breaking me. He went to every doctor's appointment, read every parenting book, rearranged his entire schedule to be home for dinner every night. Cody was thrilled about the baby. He didn't understand where babies came from, thank God, but he understood that there was something growing in Daddy's belly, and that meant he was going to be a big brother. The baby can have my old crib, he announced one night at dinner. The one with the stars. That's very generous, James said, trying not to smile. And I can teach it how to talk. You can try. And when it's bigger, we can share a room. Cody, and eat your vegetables. Cody made a face but obeyed, and James looked at me across the table with an expression I still couldn't quite name. What? I asked. Nothing. He reached over and took my hand. Just thank you. For what? For staying. He squeezed my fingers. For giving me a chance. For James. What? I love you too. His breath caught. You've never said that before. I know. Why now? I looked down at our joined hands, then back up at his face. Because I'm tired of being scared, I said. I'm tired of waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm tired of pretending that I don't, that I haven't. Mark, I've loved you since the first year. The words came out in a rush. Even when I hated you. Even when I ran. Even when I was lying in a hospital bed, holding our son, telling myself that I was better off alone. I loved you. I never stopped. James was quiet for a long time. Then he stood, walked around a table, and pulled me to my feet. Say it again, he whispered. I love you. Again. I love you. He kissed me. Right there, in front of Cody, in front of the cook, in front of the whole damn world. You, Cody said. Daddy and Big Daddy are being gross. James laughed against my mouth. He's got a point, I murmured. I don't care. He kissed me again. I don't ever want to stop. The baby came early. Not as early as Cody, thank God, but early enough that we weren't ready. James was in a meeting when my water broke. I was home alone with Cody, trying to teach him how to draw a cat, when I felt that familiar rush of warmth between my legs. Shit. Daddy said a bad word. Daddy gets to say bad words today. I grabbed my phone, called James. No answer. Called again. No answer. Called Chloe. I'm on my way, she said. Don't move. I didn't move. I sat on the couch with Cody on my lap and breathed through the contractions and tried not to panic. Baby's coming. Cody asked. Baby's coming. Will it hurt? A little. Cody patted my stomach. Don't worry, baby. Daddy's brave. I laughed, and then I cried, and then Chloe was there, and we were in the car, and James was calling back, and everything was chaos. By the time we got to the hospital, I was fully dilated. Too fast, the doctor said. We need to slow this down. I can't slow it down. I was sweating, shaking, clinging to Chloe's hand. The baby's coming now. Where's James? I don't know. The door burst open. James was there, tie loosened, hair a mess, eyes wild. He looked like he'd run the whole way. I'm here, he said, pushing Chloe aside and taking my hand. I'm here. You're late. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Shut up and hold my hand. He held my hand. He held my hand through the contractions, through the pushing, through the moment when the baby finally came out screaming. It's a girl, the doctor said. James looked at me. We looked at the baby. She was perfect. Tiny and red-faced and furious at being born, but perfect. She has your nose, James said. She has your lungs. James laughed, and then he cried, and then he took our daughter from the nurse and held her like she was made of glass. Hi, baby, he whispered. I'm your daddy. Well, I'm your big daddy. Your other daddy is the one who did all the hard work. I hate you. You love me. I do. I reached out, touched the baby's cheek. I really do. Later, much later, when the baby was asleep and Cody had been brought to meet his sister and Chloe had gone home and the room was finally quiet, James crawled into the hospital bed with me. You're going to break it, I said. It's reinforced. James. Mark. He wrapped his arms around me, pulled me against his chest. You scared me today. Sorry. Don't be sorry. Just don't do it again. I can't control when the baby decides to come. Then don't almost die. I turned my head to look at him. His eyes were red, his face pale, his scent heavy with fear and exhaustion. I wasn't going to die. You don't know that. His grip tightened. When Chloe called and said you were in labor when I got here and they wouldn't let me in because you were already pushing, I thought, James, I thought I was going to lose you again. His voice cracked. I thought I was going to get there too late, and you'd be gone, and I'd have another baby and know you, and I couldn't. I can't. You're not going to lose me. I reached up, touched his face. I'm right here. For how long? As long as you want me. I want you forever. He pressed his forehead against mine. I want you for the rest of my life. I want to grow old with you. I want to watch our children grow up. I want. Then have me. I do. He kissed me. Soft. Gentle. Nothing like the way he kissed me 3 years ago. I have you. And I'm never letting go. The next morning, while the baby slept and Cody watched cartoons on James's phone, James got down on one knee. In the hospital. Shut up. He pulled a ring out of his pocket. It wasn't fancy, just a simple gold band, the kind you could buy at any jewelry store. I was going to do this at home, with candles and flowers and everything you deserve. But then you went and had a baby, and I realized. Realized what? That there's no perfect moment. He took my hand. There's just now. And I don't want to wait anymore. James, I love you. His voice was steady, certain. I've loved you since the first time you told me to go fuck myself. I loved you when you cried in my arms. I loved you when I thought you were dead. And I'm going to love you for the rest of my life. James, marry me. I stared at him. Cody stared at him. The baby slept on. Marry me, he said again. Please. Yes. James blinked. What? I said yes. I pulled him to his feet, kissed him, laughed against his mouth. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll spend the rest of my life with you. Yes, yes, yes. You, Cody said. Gross. Shut up, James and I said together. And then we were laughing and crying and kissing, and somewhere in the middle of all of it, the baby woke up and started crying too. Perfect timing, I said. Just like her father. James kissed me one more time, then went to pick up our daughter. And I sat there in a hospital bed, wearing a cheap gold ring, watching the man I love hold our child while our son made gagging noises in the background. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And that was enough. Hashtag accidentally got pregnant. I made fake death to escape. When he met me again, I didn't expect extra heat that changed everything. 6 months after the wedding. 1 year after our daughter was born. 2 years since I stopped running. The heat came early. I should have known something was wrong when I woke up sweating, my skin too tight, my sheet soaked through. The clock on the nightstand said 3:47 a.m., and beside me, James was still asleep, one arm thrown over my waist, his face pressed into my hair, his scent thick and warm and everywhere. Then the cramp hit. Not a normal cramp. Not the kind that came with monthly cycles or the aftermath of childbirth. This was deeper, sharper, an ache that started in my belly and radiated outward until my whole body was burning with it. No, not now. Not tonight. But my body didn't care about timing. My body had never cared about anything except what it wanted, and right now what it wanted was my alpha. James. He didn't stir. James. His eyes opened. Gray and hazy with sleep, tear gel on my face, then widening as my scent hit him. Mark. My heat. I was already shaking. It's early. I don't know why I thought I had another week, I thought. Shoo. He was awake now. Fully awake, his alpha instincts kicking in. His hand found my forehead, cool against my burning skin. You're burning up. I know. Where are the kids? Chloe's. Remember. She took them for the weekend. I gasped as another wave of heat rolled through me. We were supposed to have the house to ourselves, and I was going to make you dinner, and we were going to... James kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't romantic. It was the kind of kiss that said, stop talking. I need you. I've always needed you. I've got you, he murmured against my mouth. I've got you, Omega. Just let go. James, I'm right here. His hands were on my body, learning me all over again. 2 years together, and he still touched me like I was something precious. Something worth keeping. I'm not going anywhere. The heat lasted 3 days. 3 days of sweating and shaking and crying out for things I couldn't name. 3 days of James's hands in James's mouth and James's knot, over and over until I couldn't remember where I ended and he began. On the second day, he almost lost control. I'd seen James lose control before, in anger, in grief, in the desperate hours after he'd found me again. But this was different. This was Alpha losing control, the primal part of him that wanted to claim and keep and never let go. Mine, he growled against my throat, his teeth scraping over the bonding scar he left months ago. Say you're mine. I'm yours. Say it. I'm yours, James. I've always been yours. He bit down. Not hard enough to break skin, not this time, but hard enough that I felt it in my bones. Hard enough that my Omega hindbrain keened with satisfaction. Claim. Made it. Home. On the third day, the fever broke. I woke up slowly, consciousness returning in pieces. First the sound of rain against the windows. Then the weight of James's arm around my waist. Then the soreness, everywhere, deep in my muscles and joints, the kind of sore that meant I'd been pushed to my limits and beyond. "You're awake." James's voice was rough, exhausted. I turned my head and saw him watching me, his gray eyes soft in the dim light. "How long?" I asked. "3 days." He brushed a strand of hair from my face. "You scared me." "I scared you. Your fever got too high. I almost called an ambulance." "Why didn't you?" "Because you begged me not to." His jaw tightened. "Because you were crying, and you said you couldn't stand another hospital, and He stopped. Swallowed. "I should have called anyway." "I should have." "James." "What?" "You didn't do anything wrong." I reached up, touched his face. "You stayed." "That's what I needed. I could have lost you. But you didn't." He closed his eyes, pressed his forehead against mine. "I love you," he said. "I know I don't say it enough. I know I'm not good at this, at feelings, at being what you need. But I love you, Mark. More than anything. More than. I know. You know. I've always known." I kissed him soft and slow. Even when I was running. Even when I was pretending I didn't. I've always known. Chloe brought the kids back that afternoon. Cody ran into the house like a hurricane, already talking a mile a minute about the zoo and the aquarium and the really big ice cream that Chloe had bought him. The baby Lily, we named her Lily, because James said she was as delicate as a flower, and I said that was the most cliché thing I'd ever heard, was asleep in her carrier, her tiny face peaceful. "Daddy." Cody launched himself at me, and I caught him, ignoring the ache in my muscles. "Daddy, we saw a giraffe, and it was so tall, and it licked the window," and Chloe said, "Slow down, baby." I laughed, hugging him tight. "Tell me everything." James watched from the doorway, Lily in his arms, a smile on his face that I'd never seen before. Soft, confident, happy. "What?" I asked. "Nothing." He walked over, pressed a kiss to my temple. "Just this. You, our kids, our home. It's not much. It's everything." That night, after Cody was asleep and Lily was fed and Chloe had gone home, James found me in the nursery. I was standing by Lily's crib, watching her sleep. She had James's coloring, dark hair, fair skin, but my eyes. Those fox-shaped eyes that had caused me so much trouble over the years. "She's beautiful," James said, coming up behind me. "She's perfect. She has your stubbornness. She has your temper." James wrapped his arms around my waist, pulling me against his chest. His scent was warm, comforting, safe. "Another heat like that," he said quietly, "and I'm getting a vasectomy." I laughed. "You wouldn't." "Watch me." His lips brushed my ear. "I can't lose you, Mark. Not again. Not ever." "James." "I mean it." His arms tightened. "One more pup. That's all I need. You and Cody and Lily. That's my whole world." I turned in his arms, looked up at his face. "Really? Really? What about the heir to the Astor dynasty? The continuation of the family name? All that bullshit your grandfather used to talk about. My grandfather can go to hell." James kissed my forehead. "You're my family. You and Cody and Lily. Everyone else is just noise." I didn't know what to say to that, so I kissed him instead. 3 weeks later, James got the vasectomy. He didn't tell me beforehand, just came home from a business meeting walking funny, with a bag of frozen peas pressed between his legs. "What the hell happened to you?" "Nothing." "James." "Nothing." I looked at him, looked at the peas, looked at the guilty expression on his face. "You didn't." "I did." "You got a vasectomy?" "I told you I would." "Without telling me?" I wanted it to be a surprise. I stared at him. Then I started laughing. Then I was crying and laughing and hitting his chest, and he was wincing because apparently the peas weren't just for show. "You're insane," I said. "Probably. You're the most impossible, infuriating, ridiculous. Yours." He caught my hand, pressed a kiss to my palm. "I'm yours, Mark. Completely." irrevocably, for the rest of my life. You couldn't have waited until I was in the room? Where's the fun in that? I kissed him, carefully, gently, mindful of the frozen piece. I love you, I said. I love you too, even when you're stupid, especially when I'm stupid. We stood there in the kitchen, holding each other, while the peas melted and the kids slept, and the city hummed outside the windows. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and that was more than enough.